Hey there, everybody. My name is Alexis, and welcome to Food, Faith, and Fortunes. Today, we are going to be talking about several things. One of the things that we're going to do is make Zuppa Toscana soup from Olive Garden. So let's start with prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to the world. And thank you for the way that you're going to use my mouth to say whatever it is you need to say. And I pray that everybody listening has ears to hear whatever it is you're going to speak to them. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So, for people who don't, I feel like I have 85 things in my mind that I want to say. So I'm going to try to keep it from just all coming out as, mouth vomit. Um, um, some people know that I worked for several years as a manager for Olive Garden. And, um, and it is true. The rumors are true. They do make everything from scratch except for one sauce, which is the children's spaghetti sauce, tomato sauce. That's the only thing that comes from a can. Everything else is homemade. I have a ton of these recipes stuck in my brain. And so today, by request, because Michelle requested Zuppa Toscana, we are going to make Zuppa Toscana right here. Zuppa means soup. Toscana means Tuscan, so from Italy. So it's Italian Tuscan soup. That's what that is. So I've got right here 3 pounds of sausage. Now, the original Olive Garden recipe will call for Italian spicy sausage. And the only difference is to make regular sausage spicy Italian is you add a little bit of red pepper flakes and a little bit of Italian seasoning. That's all that is. And so we've also got the equivalent of what will be 2 cups of bacon. And I'm getting ready to chop that up. So we're going to saute all of this together. And this is a handy dandy little kitchen tool, scissors with a cutting board on the end. I really love this one. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my bacon like this. And I'm not cutting it into cubes. I'm cutting it just into, 1-inch pieces like that, because when it cooks, it's going to curl up. You can use bacon bits, like the fully cooked bacon bits that you would put on the salad. You can use those. The reason I don't want to use those, I don't like to use those, is because of the chemicals. So all the preservatives that are in there. And if you don't have one of these little handy dandy cutting tools, they really do make your life easier. The reason the Zuppa Toscana was requested was because I was talking to a friend of mine, Michelle, one day, and I was telling her about how I freeze dried the Zuppa Toscana soup, the homemade soup, and then reconstituted it, added the water back in, and it was even more flavorful and delicious than the original. And she said, "You know how to make that? Please make that on your channel." So I said, okay. And it is a cold, rainy day. Well, it's not cold, it's chilly. So this might be the last soup opportunity video until fall. And so this is a roll of sausage that you get, just in a 1-pound roll of sausage in the package. Yes. And then there's 3 of them. And this thing is sharp. I have almost cut my fingertip off before. Okay. That is definitely 2 cups of sausage. Or not sausage, bacon. I have a little bowl in the sink here that I'm going to just put that away off to the side. Okay. Turning on the skillet to high and just going to start breaking up this sausage and browning everything. You don't want huge chunks of sausage, so go ahead and get your sausage broken up. That way you won't have to break up cooked pieces when it's cooked. So in the ingredients, it says that you can add, down a little further in the ingredients, you can add seasoned pepper and or red pepper flakes, like crushed red pepper to the soup. If you want to go ahead and try to make this spicy Italian sausage, you can go ahead and add the red pepper flakes and the Italian seasoning to this. I have a child that loves this soup but does not like anything spicy. So I am going to not add it. I'm not going to add any of the red pepper flakes to the sausage. I'm going to add Italian seasoning and then later I'm going to add a pinch of the red pepper flakes to the soup itself. So this is 3 teaspoons of fresh Italian seasonings. You can buy this in your local grocery store already. Rosemary, thyme, basil already, and parsley already diced up. And this will cook faster if we put the lid on it. So I'm going to put the lid on it. Set that aside for just a second. And we're going to go ahead and chop our onion. But I'm going to show you something pretty special with this onion. And if you don't have one of these, I highly recommend one of these too. The Chop Wizard. So I'm going to cut. If you can see right here, I've got some sprouts growing on my onion. So obviously maybe not obviously. I'm not going to put that in the soup. I'm going to cut off the top. I'll use the rest of the onion in the soup, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can grow from it. Because I'm in a season of my life where I'm trying to grow everything. So I am going to actually, not these. Hang on. Pause 1 second. I'm going to grab toothpicks. No, I don't need to grab toothpicks. My alarm system's going off. So there. In a few days, this onion should grow roots down here. And then once the roots are about this long to the bottom of the little glass, then I should be able to put that into some soil. So I'll let you know on the next video whether or not that worked. It works with green onions. It works with avocados, because I also have an avocado that is growing from a seed, from the seed that I bought in the grocery store. That's my second avocado plant growing from a seed. So that actually works. This part can get noisy. And the answer is yes, I have broken several of these. I know that was what you were thinking. All right, there's our onion chopped. And the cool thing about this is all of these grooves in here, this flap lifts it right out, just like that. We are going to add the onion and the garlic to our sausage. It smells like breakfast in here right now. I'm just breaking up some of this sausage. So yeah, in case you don't know, which, I mean, I know you heard them, but I have 3 large yellow labs. There we go. 1 large onion. And a 1/4 cup of garlic, minced garlic. And go ahead and get some of that juice in the cup too, because that's not going to hurt a thing. And no, Olive Garden does not use fresh garlic. They use the garlic, I promise. All right. We are going to go ahead and put the lid back on this. And move on to something else for a minute. Speaking of growing things, after 4 months of patiently waiting, I have grown a potato. I have grown a potato. It is literally the size of my thumbnail. So I had 3 grow bags, and I planted the potatoes, and the potatoes were all sprouting. And after a few weeks, they started growing. They're green, vines. And you add more soil, and then they're going to grow. They're going to grow taller, and then when they start wilting, it's done. So I dug into the potato bags looking to find these potatoes after 4 months. And the original potatoes had disappeared, right? They had broken down. And out of 3 bags, this was all I got. I'm very proud of my little potato. All right, we're going to cut. The end of the recipe calls for kale. And so you can buy this already chopped in a bag. My family doesn't appreciate when I do that because it still has the stems in a lot of it. So this has already been rinsed. So I'm just going to cut this off of the stem. I'm not going to throw that away though. That's going in the compost. And the easiest way, I'm hoping you can see this, to cut the kale is to just cut along the stem. Fold it in half and cut along the stem. And just take off the stem. And then with this piece, that's when you're going to cut that into smaller pieces. It looks like a lot of kale, but once it hits the hot soup, the hot liquid of the soup, it kind of wilts down. So if you're the kind of person that does not like green stuff, you can leave it out. I think it's absolutely delicious in the soup. I bet you could use spinach and it would be good too. Now, I don't know if this is exactly the recipe Olive Garden has. They do make everything from scratch, so they have recipe cards that they follow every single day. I feel like I had this recipe actually written down from Olive Garden once upon a time, but I have about 4 years ago lost my cookbook. My cookbook where I kept basically all of my recipes. So this is mostly from memory. And then I added or took away what I wanted to from it. So like I'm positive I'm putting too much sausage in it and probably too much bacon. But my family likes really chunky soup, hearty, thick, heavy soup, not watery, thin soups. So that's why I put 3 pounds in there. You can honestly do whatever you want to. A lot of people think that cooking is an exact science. It's not. It's trial and error, but it's mostly whatever you want. And that's why I always end up changing recipes. And the reason I actually make it at home a lot is number one, I don't know if you guys have experienced any kind of needing to tighten the wallet a little bit, but we can't go to Olive Garden as much as my daughter would like to go to Olive Garden. So, but the second reason is Olive Garden is one of the restaurants I will eat at even after working there. And that says something. That speaks a lot to their standard of cleanliness. Okay. However, I will tell you that the potatoes, for example, I have cut away some spots on the potatoes that were brown, or the holes where a worm had dinner. And your restaurants are not going to do that. So, but I know that if we get potatoes from the grocery store, or if we get apples from the grocery store, if there's a bad spot, we're going to cut it away. We're not going to just throw it into our food, right? The restaurant's not going to do that. They're going to feel like the majority of the time you're never going to know it's there. So, and they like to work fast. And that's also why I don't ever get lemon in my tea or in my water, because they don't wash. I can't say this about every single person, right? Somebody out there probably washes it. However, in their minds, they think, well, the outside of the lemon's not going to be eaten. But when they cut the lemon without washing it, the lemon still goes inside the drink. And all of those germs are there. Okay, now let's toss around our sausage. My glasses are fogging up. If you guys have questions, thoughts, ideas, comments, smart remarks, go ahead and throw them in the comments. If you like this kind of soup, let me know in the comments. Let's just turn on that chat. And even if you don't want to talk with me, that's fine too, but go ahead and give this video a like. Because I promise you, this is authentic Olive Garden soup. Okay, this is almost done. The next part is we're going to slice the potatoes. You can dice the potatoes or you can slice them. The way they do it at Olive Garden is they slice them, because they put them in a big slicing machine, basically. So I actually do like it sliced. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm using the same knife that I just used to cut all the kale. And I'm cutting these about a quarter of an inch, maybe a third of an inch. They're in slices like that. And I already washed them, cut out the bad parts. So I don't want anybody to say, oh, she's using dirty potatoes. The ends like this, that's a big piece of potato. I will dice that part there. Cut that into fours. Yes, I am cutting on my counter. It is granite. Some people still don't approve, but that's okay. It's mine. Y'all, I've got a hair tickle in my face right now. It's driving me crazy. There it is. Okay. All of our potatoes are cut. They're ready to go into the soup. This sausage is done. Now this is the pot that I'm going to cook the soup in. And for right now, though, I'm just going to set this in here and let all of the sausage drain into here. Not because I'm going to use the grease in the soup. I'm not. It's not going to hurt to have the flavor of it in there, though. And try to dirty up as little dishes as possible. So we've already talked about that I freeze dry this soup. And that works out really, really well. But I have noticed that, and maybe you all have noticed this too, when you freeze potatoes, the texture of the potato comes out completely different after you thaw it. So it is, so you can freeze it, and I'm supposed to say, right, Serve Safe certified, I'm supposed to say it'll stay in your refrigerator for up to 3 days. Honestly, I eat stuff well over a week old, going on 2 weeks, if I'm being honest, because I'm not scared. So you can freeze this if you have too much, but just be aware that the texture of the potato is going to be different when you go to thaw it out. Okay, I'm going to let all that grease drain off for a minute. And while we're waiting for that, I'm going to give you an update on something. The water glassed eggs, I finished the eggs in the refrigerator and I skipped several days. The last egg, the 14th egg, I actually ate 30 days after I washed them, rinsed them off, and put them in the refrigerator. And after 30 days, that last egg was absolutely delicious. Just scrambled in a pan with some avocado oil, salt, and pepper. It was wonderful. So now I'm going to get another batch of the water glassed eggs. And these were 2.5 years old, 2.5 year old eggs. I'm going to get another 10, 14 eggs. And I'm actually going to wait 30. I'm going to rinse them, put them in the refrigerator, and then I'm going to wait 30 days. And I'm going to start testing them at that point. And we'll see what happens. So our sausage is pretty well drained. I'm just going to put that oil back into the saute pan for now. I have a handy dandy empty coffee pot that I use to catch all of the grease over a month period, and then I throw it away. So now we've got our empty pot. We are going to put 3 boxes of chicken broth. This is unsalted, so the sodium in it is 35 milligrams. So this is one of your better, unless you're brining something. If you're brining something, you need the full strength, full sodium broth. So I've got 3 boxes of 32 ounce. You do not have to use Swanson's. You can use your store brand, and that's absolutely fine. I have this because I have people who eat low sodium in my house. This sounds terrible. Sounds like somebody's off camera going to the bathroom. One more. And 2 cups of water. Go ahead and toss your potatoes in here and then put it on your stove. Bring it to a boil and boil until the potatoes are not mushy, but you can stab it with a fork. You can cut it with a fork. And I used, how many potatoes did I use? I think it was 5 or 6 potatoes for a full pot. And this pot will feed a large family, 5, 6 people at least. And depending on how hungry everyone is, probably leftovers. All right, so spread those out a little bit with our cutting knife. How you like that? All right, put it on the stove. And I'll let that come to a boil. I'm going to wash my hands. And I'm going to clean up this oil that's on the counter, because otherwise I'll stick my hand in it while I'm talking to you. All right, so while that's boiling, we can talk about the rest of everything that we're going to talk about today. So the faith aspect part of this is uh, um, I'm a, what's the best way to say this? Uh, I've been very, very convicted recently. Um, Over the past 6 months, probably less than a year, to get rid of the chemicals in my diet, to get rid of all the toxins in my diet, the additives, preservatives, all of that stuff. Um, and it's difficult, man. I mean, everything has preservatives in it. Um, um, but when I consider, I feel like there's a reason God has convicted me. I feel that Holy Spirit conviction to be toxin free. Okay. And if you think about it like this, if you could hold God in your hand, um, you would, if God was this beacon of holy ball of light, right, that you could just hold right here in your hand, you would walk around very carefully. You would be very protective, right? You would make sure your hands are clean, right? But so eventually, though, I mean, you got to do stuff with your hands. So, so you're going to put this holy God, you're going to put him down somewhere so you can do stuff with your hands, right? But where are you going to put him down? Where are you going to set God? And so when I think about that, I'm not going to set God in a container that's got like a plastic Tupperware bowl that's got old spaghetti sauce stain in it or stuff like that. It's got microwave burn. Um, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna set it on. I mean, just a counter, where there's probably breadcrumbs from a sandwich. You're going to pick. So if you had to put it somewhere, you would pick something very clean. You would pick something very beautiful. You would pick the best thing that you could pick. And that is our bodies. We are the vessel where God's Holy Spirit sits, where God sits in us. And I have not been doing a good job of keeping that container where God sits clean and um, and unblemished and beautiful. And that is where that conviction is coming from. So if I want, where the Bible says that your body is God's temple, some people don't understand what that means. It means you're literally housing the Spirit of God. And so do you want it to be in something that is not well maintained, or do you want to be very God honoring and take care of that vessel that is holding God? And so that has been my conviction over the past several months, 6 months to a year, to try to do better at getting rid of the things that aren't supposed to go into my ear gate, the things that aren't supposed to go into my eye gate, not supposed to go into my mouth, to preservatives and toxins and stuff like that. So I hope that you will consider joining me on that uh, cleaner path, that cleaner holy temple path. But everybody should always follow their own convictions. So just some food for thought, some spiritual food for thought. And the next thing is the finance. So I'm going to get my whiteboard. Okay. Is this? And is this good? All right. So Everybody wants to know about the market crashing, right? Everybody wants to everybody wanted to know before, is the market going to crash? And I said, it's overdue for a crash. I think it's, all signs point to yes. I feel like we're going to have it. And I actually had a phone call today with a client. A client had just a couple of questions for tax season. And the first thing she said to me when I called her was, um, Alexis, I bet you are just overloaded with phone calls coming in during all of this. Uh, you know, Another client called it a market bloodbath. And I said, actually, I've only had a couple of calls, and those calls were actually somebody telling me that they bought more crypto while it was low, and someone else asking me, is it time to go back into the stock market yet, or do we wait a little longer? And nobody has called me, and I told her on the phone, nobody has called me scared. And she said, well, that is absolutely amazing. And I said, oh, in all humility, I feel like I have prepared everyone over the past couple of years that this was coming. Uh, and so their expectations were, um, reflected that. Their actions now reflect those expectations, and nobody is scared. And when I tell them, how much their account has gone down, um, this one particular lady, 4 to 4.5%, between 4 and 4.5%. And she said, "That's amazing. That's completely doable." I said, "Well, it's a lot better than 20%, and it's because we prepared correctly." So I'm going to explain a little bit about just some basics about market cycles. Okay. Which color shows up best? Black, probably. Probably. Red's on the floor now. So, all right. So there's terminology that people will use when they describe the stock market, and a lot of times people use it in the wrong context. So I'm actually going to explain those definitions right here. When the stock market drops 5%, that is called a dip. You've heard people say, buy the dip, right? A dip, typically, historically, okay, a 5% drop in the market will happen about 4 times per year, okay? It's nothing to be concerned about. It drops usually in one day, takes a week to make it back up. Happens all the time. It is a good opportunity to buy. Okay, if you're thinking about, if you're already buying Coca-Cola, or if you're, whatever it is, it's still a good time to buy. A 10% drop, that is called the correction. And so you might hear people say, well, the market's going to correct. It's going to correct. It's going to correct. A correction happens about every 18 months, year and a half or so. Okay. So 12 to 24 months or so. And it's also usually very short lived. It's only a couple month period long kind of drop, and then rebound. The whole thing only lasts a few months. And then you have your 20 to 30 or more percent drop. And that is the infamous bear. That's a bear market. This one happens about every, it used to happen about every 6 years. Okay. Um, so typically 5 to 7 years is when you're going to see this 20 to 30% drop. And it's always going to be triggered by something different, and which is why you'll hear people say, "Oh, it's different this time." It's always going to be different, but the triggering, the effect of the trigger is usually always the same. So in 2001, we had the .com, the tech bubble, crash. Um, and that sent the market down. And it was actually a 3-year bear market. It happens every 6 years, but it lasts anywhere from 6 months to 3 years. I did that wrong. Years. You know what I'm saying. So the tech bubble made the market go down. And then the very next year, before the market could rebound, we had our terrorist attack. I'm sorry. So tech bubble was in 2000. 2001 was our terrorist attack. 2002, we went to war. Lehman Brothers went under. And so it was actually a 3-year bear market. And then after that, the market started rising again and rose all the way up until September of 2007. And then the market went down with the great financial crisis, the housing market, housing bubble, all of that, 2008, right? And that bear market lasted a year and a half. So from September of, 2007, all the way until February, March of 2009 is when it actually started its uptick again. And then the next one after that, the next real one after that, 2015 had a couple of roller coaster dips. Corrections. But in 2020, obviously, we had COVID. Okay. That was a 35% drop, happened in March, and it went straight down for 1 month. Only 1 month did it go down 30, but it went down 35%. And over the next 6 months after that, until October or so, September, October, it had actually gotten back up. It rebounded so rapidly that it got back up to where it was in March. It was only a 6-month bear market. It's not truly a bear market. Bear markets usually hurt more than that. So let me explain kind of why that happened. And so, and what I'm going to show you here is a very typical type of market cycle. Okay. So let's say the market is going up, and then it goes down. Okay. Now, someone might look at that and say, okay, well, that's the start of the bear market. Well, it might be, it might not be. This could be 10%. It could only be 5%, right? So a lot of times when there is a correction, a lot of times when there is the beginning of a bear market, when it's time for that bear market and something in the economy is starting to trigger that bear market, you'll see the market go down, but correction investors will say, oh, the market's on sale. Let's buy the dip. Let's buy the correction. Okay. And that will make the market come back up a little bit. Okay. It might not come back up all the way to where it was, but that inflow of volume trying to buy the dip, which is actually what happened during COVID. You had a lot of investors getting stimulus money, and a lot of money was going back into the market. Okay, so it'll go back up, but then the rest of the bear market will eventually happen. Okay, and people will try to buy the dip, but the rest of the bear market will happen. So in my personal opinion, I know this doesn't look like an uptick chart. It's my terrible artist. In my personal opinion, and I could be wrong, it would be highly convenient if I could see the future. I say that all the time. It would be really awesome. I feel like we have experienced with that 2,000 plus point rally yesterday. I feel like we are doing this. And then today the market was down again. And you very well might see buyers again. Okay. You might see more buyers again and volume go up. But the bear market is happening, and there might be some buyers, but the bear market is happening. Okay? There are so many trigger points that make this economic environment ripe for a true bear market. Inflation, war, tariffs, unemployment, political polarization, there, and much more. So there's a ton of things that are setting us up for a prime time to have a bear market. So if the market's already down 20%, between 15 and 20%, okay? If you don't feel like you can tolerate, if we're sitting right here and you don't feel like you can tolerate here and here and here, then you need to talk to your financial advisor about rebalancing, taking whatever gain you might still have, reallocating that to somewhere else. Okay. If they try to talk you out of it, politely listen. Okay. And get a second opinion. I'm not saying move. I'm just saying get a second opinion. Okay. Financial advisors are trained to talk you out of selling when you're scared, which makes a whole lot of sense, right? But if you are not settled in your spirit with where you are, then you need to get a second opinion. Bear markets are usually, the COVID bear market lasted 6 months. The great financial crisis lasted a year and a half. The 2000.com, when that started, that one lasted 3 years, but there was also further triggering marks. And I know I'm repeating myself, but somebody asked a question. There were more contributing factors that kept making the market go down during 2000, 2001, 2002. And what will make the market start coming back up again is just time. It's just time. It's when the economy is back into, preferably or ideally not in a recession. The technical definition of a recession is 2 back-to-back quarters of negative GDP, meaning that the economy has had negative returns for two straight months, for 2 straight quarters, for 6 months. So we would have to be out of that kind of scenario. Unemployment would have to go down. People would be able to find jobs. They would not be hurting to go to Olive Garden or the grocery store. There's not any one thing that makes the market start going back up, except volume an inflow back into the market. And that depends on whether or not people can invest, right? So I hope that this was helpful. I am going to go into I am going to start explaining some individual investments bit by bit, explaining what bonds are, what mutual funds are, and stocks are, what ETFs are, annuities, all of these things. So on some upcoming videos, I think that's the direction I'm going to go with the financial part. And people say, Alexis, when are you going to make another video? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. In the beginning, I originally thought I would do this twice a week. I would do this, Tuesdays and Fridays or something like that. And God very patiently told me, this is his project and not mine. And he doesn't fit into my schedule. So now the plan is, the correct plan is, we wait. Alexis waits until God gives me the spiritual and the financial aspect to speak about. And I say spiritual, faith and fortunes part because he always gives me that. I don't come up with it on my own. But he's never told me what food to make. So I guess that part gets to be up to me. I guess I'm just along for this ride. The potatoes are boiling. We've got a slow boil going on right now. And what I'm going to do is, everything is live, right? I'm actually going to push pause on this video and let this finish boiling so you don't have to just stare at me staring at the boiling pot. And then we'll come back and we'll finish the rest of is that doable? Can we do that? Can we push pause? I'm asking my camera. Oh, okay. He says we can't. So how long is this video? I don't want it to be too long. So, all right. So I guess we're at an hour. Good gravy. Okay. What do we want to do, guys? Do you guys want to hear some other kind of financial? Do you want me to start explaining an investment, or do you want me to just tell you what to add to the pot and then call it quits? You guys let me know. I know somebody's watching. I'll just sit patiently and wait. I'm adding 2 cups of heavy cream to the measuring cup because I know we're going to use that. Okay, we have a question. Could this be a crash like the famous 1929 crash? The stock market was the Dow Jones, for example. The Dow Jones had just peaked over 7,000, which sounds crazy to hear because now we're at like 40,000, and we had gotten up to 45,000, right? But in 1929, the Dow Jones was at a touch over 7,000. It dropped in less than a year to a little over 1,000. It was an 85% drop. Do I think that there's potential for there to be an 85% drop in the stock market? even though I think that, even though I get excited about downturns in the market because I think they're excellent buying opportunities, and that people need to have conservative and cash investments on the side waiting to go into that bear market. I know there's a ton of people that have not allocated appropriately. Um, and an 85% drop in the stock market actually just hurts my heart. Like that just, it would devastate so many people who did not prepare ahead of time. So do I think that it's a possibility? Yeah. Um, and that's only because I don't know what I don't know. Anything could happen. Um, did the Great Depression make us realize that we need to diversify? I don't know the answer to that. Actually, I can't tell you that everybody was. I mean, it was the Industrial Revolution, a part of it. So I cannot say that uh, that people um, lost money because they weren't diversified. I I don't know the answer to that. The best way to have been set up to be allocated and diversified going into this current bear market would have been individual short-term bonds, not bond funds, but individual short-term bonds. And as far as the stock market goes, individual stocks or ETFs that were very specifically focused on your commodities, for example, are not going to drop as bad during this economic environment. Your staples, consumer staples, your Walmarts and your Colgate and your Procter and Gamble and stuff like that, that's not going to be affected as much because those are things that everybody needs even during a downturn. Um, People are still going to brush their teeth, and even if it's 1929, people are still going to brush their teeth, and women are still going to need tampons. So, um, going into this downturn, people should have been invested in necessities and not discretionary things like cruise lines and cyclical spending things like automotive stocks, things like that. Um, if there's if this downturn gets really worse, what's going to be hurt is without any extra discretionary spending, your leisurely, cruise lines, the airlines, the um, price line when it went from $8 and now it went up to $1,500 to $1,800. That could see a decline. Um, Again, can't see the future, but um, there's so much to say. I don't want to vomit it all out and just be unorganized. So let's check the potatoes. Okay, these are, I just cut them with the spoon, so they are ready to go. You can kind of stick your spoon in there and mash them up a little bit if you want to break them up. It's completely up to you. Now I am going to add a teaspoon of seasoned pepper. I like seasoned pepper. Seasoned pepper, and I'm going to add a pinch of the crushed red pepper flakes. because my daughter doesn't like the spicy stuff. And we're going to add a teaspoon of salt. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with y'all. I really feel like this is going to need more than a teaspoon of salt. But y'all salt it to taste. Whatever you like. And then the only thing left is the cream. And that gives it that milky, that creamy look. The only thing left after that is your sausage and your kale. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Oh man, that is pretty. All right. Work smart, not hard, right? It looks like it's not going to fit, but I promise it will. Mix that around. Make it kind of uniform. Now, all the fluffiness of the kale will wilt down, I promise. Okay, now let's serve just a little bit into a bowl. Now, of course, you're supposed to have the Parmesan Romano cheese, the Romano cheese grated, right? On top of this, but I don't actually have any of that. Okay, now here is your Zuppa Toscana. Back in the camera. Zuppa Toscana potato soup. It looks very hot. I'm going to give it a taste though. As soon as I get this kale on here, hang on. Here we go. Hold on. That's really good. It needs more salt. But that's just me, okay? Y'all add as much salt as you want to. But there you have it. Your Zuppa Toscana soup. As soon as we turn off the camera, I'm going to add more salt to mine. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I know I made it awkward, but that's what happens when you're live. And I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy your Italian soup. Have a great day.